Ni hao. Hello, everybody. It's a pleasure for me to present to you today in the session Infrastructure and Sustainable Development, the Value of Sustainable Buildings. My name is Johannes Kreisig, CEO of the German Sustainable Building Council, and I have prepared a session today for you about risk and value of sustainability. Climate risk is investment risk. This is one of the conclusions the CEO of BlackRock, the world's largest asset manager, has written in his letter to his clients in January this year. Climate risk is investment risk, and investors do not like risk. He mentioned in this letter that they will take action about companies who are not responding to their task to work against climate change because it's bringing up their risk. This letter was a surprise for me because I did not expect from an investor like BlackRock to have to look in this direction, and it's showing me that there's a lot of change. There's also change in the climate. This slide is showing the temperature change since 1880 in Germany, and you can see from the left side to the right side how the temperature was changing from blue. Color code is blue is for colder, red is for warmer, from colder to warmer climate. You can see that is a clear tendency, but this is not a picture which is unique for Germany. You can see that also for other countries, and if I plot this picture for China, you can see exactly the same, even more dramatic. This is an average temperature in China since 1900. So this is change. The climate is changing, but also the world is changing. And changes are everywhere. It's not only the climate. We see growth of population and urbanization. We see a demographic change. Many of our societies are getting older. We see regional shortage of clean water in many regions. As mentioned, we see climate change. We see a scarcity of resources essential for economic prosperity. And we see increasing population of air and water by industry and traffic. These are all changes, and there are even more. And it's clear that these changes are also affecting our built environment and our demand and our requests for the built environment. And there's also a change what future buildings need to be. And we see as an answer of the change in the world that, for example, because of the growth of population and urbanization, we need more affordable buildings. We need more adapted and flexible buildings because of the demographic change. We need water-saving buildings. We need buildings which are protecting the climate, buildings which are circular, not to waste the resources. And of course, we need healthy buildings because the buildings need to serve the population, the people, and the society. Buildings and cities are a basic need of each society. This is one of the statements in the UN Sustainable Development Goals, and the Sustainable Development Goal number 11, Sustainable Cities and Communities, this is concluded in this goal. This represents the basic need, a basic need. But buildings and cities influence almost all the other SDGs directly or indirectly. And there you can see that there's a link to climate action, there's a link to life below water, life on land, there's a link to almost all other SDGs. And this makes clear why the concept of sustainability is such an essential concept to address all these different changes in the world. Climate change is one of them, but it's not the only one. For this reason, sustainability principles are so important. Principles to address when we design and build buildings. And these principles we have transferred into easy messages. One of the principles we have transferred is that we have to look for the life cycle perspective of the building. It's not enough to look only for the design or only for the construction or only for the operation. We have to look for the complete life cycle and optimize this life cycle. Otherwise, we avoid. We would shift the burden just to another stage. Second principle is the holistic view. If you look only for the economic or only for the environmental aspect, it won't help and won't solve the problem. We need a multi-criteria assessment, and we have to bring the different aspects into balance, because only a building which is good for the society, which is good for the environment, and which is affordable will solve the problem. And we need a performance-based optimization, because performance-based means that you are addressing the goal instead of the single measure. It's open for innovation, and we need innovation in this arena. Future buildings are so important. Today we are developing the buildings of tomorrow. And to foster the development of future buildings, we have developed the DGNB certification scheme, which is including all these sustainability criteria. The DGNB certificate for new buildings here is a global benchmark for sustainability, because it includes all the sustainability aspects. It includes the environmental quality, the economic quality, the social, cultural, and the functional quality, but also the technical quality and the process and the site quality, which leads to an overall good and future-proof building. And these qualities, including aspects like affordable, we have seen before, adaptable, the water-saving aspect, the climate protection, the circularity, and the health aspect. All these aspects are included in the assessment scheme beside others, and that makes clear why this holistic approach is the right one to address the different needs. Some highlights from the DGNB scheme for buildings. On the environmental side, we see energy efficiency, climate protection. We make sure that there are no hazardous substances in the project, and that there is a responsible sourcing process. For the people, it's important to have a good indoor air quality. Health, well-being, and comfort are very important criteria. So it's good for the people to use the building. Accessibility is, in a changing society, also an important aspect. The efficient use of land is also an economic aspect, since land in many areas is very expensive. Technically, we have to make sure that there's enough noise protection, recyclability, and on the process side, integral planning and concepts for optimization. So these are some of the highlights which are included, and there you see the width and the power which you can get out of these criteria. But it does not stop with the new construction. A building, when designed and built, has to be operated, and operation and management for buildings and also for building portfolios is an important aspect, because the best building, if it's designed and built in a good way, if it's operated in a bad way, it needs too much energy as well, and it's too expensive. And therefore we have designed this operation and management scheme, which is a seamless connection to the new construction. And the focus there is on energy and climate protection, which is one of our key problems today, but also on risk management, because risk is an aspect investors do not like in general. But we do not forget the user on the other side. User satisfaction, comfort, and mobility are in the equation as well. Why do we look for climate? Why do we look for climate as a risk? And why does Larry Fink from BlackRock name climate change as one of the key risks they are fighting? In this relatively new survey, the Global Risk Interconnection Map in 2020, the 5 most top-rated or likelihood risks are climate risk, extreme weather, climate action failure, natural diseases, biodiversity loss by climate change, and human-made environmental disasters. So experts all over the world have rated these 5 risks as the most likelihood risks we are facing today. From an impact importance point of view, at least 3 of the 5 are climate or are environmental risks. It's climate action failure is seen as the most important impact on our society and on our global finance system. And 3rd, biodiversity loss, and 4th, extreme weather. Therefore, we see climate change is one of the key drivers for risk, and that's the reason why we are addressing climate change in a very, very central way. In Europe, the European Commission has taken this as a starting point for a new policy. This is the EU Green Deal policy, with the plan that Europe will become climate neutral by 2050. The European Green Deal is our new growth strategy. This is Europe's man on the moon moment. That's Ursula von der Leyen, the Commission President, told at her first speech in December last year. EU climate neutrality by 2050 means that we have to do a lot more, especially in the built environment. At least 50% reduction in EU carbon emissions compared to 1990. We have to achieve by 2030, otherwise we cannot achieve the 2050 goal. There will be massive investment from Commission side into this, and new sustainability instruments will be made available, and they will bring new policies. And one of these policies will be the EU taxonomy, which is addressing sustainable investment. And here now we get the link between the finance sector and the construction sector and the real estate sector. The EU taxonomy technical report is describing the indicators which are addressed in this taxonomy to classify investment into sustainable investment and non-sustainable investment. And these indicators are, first and most important, climate change mitigation. This is the aspect which is focus of all. But all the other 5 are the so-called do not significant harm indicators we have to have on the focus as well. It's climate change adaptation, that we have to change our built environment so the changing climate do not harm the buildings and development. Then we have the sustainable and protection of water and marine resources, very important. The 3rd do not significant harm criteria, transition to a circular economy. the circularity to keep the resources in a loop. Then pollution prevention and pollution control. This is addressing the people, because it won't help if we are polluting our environment without climate change. And last but not least, the protection and restoration of biodiversity and ecosystems. So you see, it's a very wide field with a focus on climate change mitigation. How does the taxonomy work? All investment must be classified in the future into sustainable investment and non-sustainable investment. And this is in the first stage. In the second stage, the EU will punish not sustainable investment. That's for sure. And they can steer now how fast the transition to a sustainable built environment will happen. And they will do that because that's the long lever in the equation. How is the connection between this EU taxonomy, sustainable finance, and building certification? In the end, you have to prove the sustainability of your investment. And for that, you need instruments and you need verification. And there are two tasks for you to prove that this investment is sustainable. First, of course, develop building with future-proof performance. Only if the performance is good, you can prove that it's good. But you have to prove sustainability, and for that you can use the DGNB certificate, which is including the linkage to the taxonomy criteria, and there you have a verified performance. Let me conclude. Climate risk becomes investment risk. Unsustainable buildings will have to pay a higher cost of capital. That's clear. This is the consequence out of the EU taxonomy as well. Buildings we build today have to meet requirements of tomorrow. And a holistic life cycle view is important, because it's not enough to have a climate neutral building. We have to have buildings with a high performance, which are good for the user, which are circular, and so on and so on. So this do not significant harm criteria are really bringing us the right focus in the design and the development process. The DGNB scheme has been formed to support the development of future-proof buildings. This is an instrument with a tradition, and that instrument has shown for more than 10 years that it's working, and it's a very focused and good instrument. Sustainable finance will fuel the development of a sustainable construction sector in the future. And sustainable finance, the EU taxonomy is only one example and a starting point. We see a global trend in sustainable finance, and for example, organizations like Climate Bond Initiative are already today looking from a climate perspective and classifying green investment or climate positive investment for green bonds. This is important, and this is not a European activity, this is a global movement, and we will see that all over the world. The DGNB scheme is an appropriate scheme to do the building rating and to prove the sustainability performance of the development. It can be used all over the world, and we have done a couple of very, very important pilot projects also in China, and we see a lot of development in the upcoming months and years. End of the year, the scheme will also be the criteria catalog will be available in Chinese language, and therefore it will be easier to use it. Thank you very much for your interest.